I'm Laura Makin-Isherwood, and this week CNA Correspondent is in Liverpool as the UN's Cultural Board, UNESCO, stripped Liverpool of its World Heritage Site status while adding Quanzhou in China's Fujian province to the prestigious list. CNA Correspondent travels to both cities that both played important roles in world history to delve into what World Heritage really is and what it means to us.
Here, in the southern corner of China, I'm listening to what's known as a living fossil of China's musical history. Nanyin is one of the oldest forms of traditional music in China. It's been performed this way for more than 1,000 years. Zhuang Lifeng has won some of China's highest accolades for folk music. For 30 years, she's been performing Nanyin, and now she's passing everything she knows to the younger generation.
南音的传承呢，是一代一代传承的，所以南音对于我们中国人，对于我们闽南人来说是非常重要的。除了是乡音，也是我们的闽南人的精神寄托。
Minnan is here in Fujian province on China's southern coast. During one of the main waves of migration abroad, 30% of immigrants came from Fujian province. It has always been a link between China and the outside world through the port city of Quanzhou, the emporium of the world during China's Song and Yuan dynasties in the 10th to 15th centuries. It might not look like it at the moment, but this used to be one of the busiest estuary docks in China during the Song dynasty. The entire waterway would be filled with boats carrying everything from silk to spices. This year, UNESCO named Quanzhou a World Heritage Site for its role as the gateway to imperial China on the then maritime Silk Road. And one of the most sought-after Chinese exports is this. Porcelain, also known as China. This country was so well known for it, one became synonymous with the other. And I've come to the birthplace of China, here in China. This is a ceramics village in Dehua County. Nearly every shop we've passed is either making or selling ceramics, everything from teacups to carved figurines. This is a $3.5 billion industry in Dehua, population 330,000. Home to some 2,600 ceramics businesses. The most famous of Dehua ceramics is the white porcelain, known in the West as blanc de Chine, or white from China.
中国白又是从欧洲15、16世纪德化瓷器出口到西欧的。
Master Xu Ruifeng is a 6th-generation potter. Like many other artisans here, his craft is handed down to him like a family legacy.
我是一个长子长孙呢，我这跟陶瓷这已经出生就已经注定了。
It takes years to master the art of sculpting clay.
这个你可以教我做吗？
你想学啊？那我就教你一个又简单，其实不简单的手指头怎么样？好。第一关就是要做人，把手指做好了，你就入门了。来，挪一下，你看，来一小块，你看，来，顺着我，你看，来挪出来。啊哈。你看。
你怎么一只手挪这么快？我可以2只手挪吗？
可以啊，你也来啊，都可以啊。 我是啊，你看来。
I can't do it in one hand.
来，把它揉成一个手指头的这形状。哇，你这是揉面团哦，啊，你那样揉嘛，等一下，因为这个土哈，我们泥巴要有个速线，所谓速线就是泥水跟水的含水，你这样揉呢，等一下水蒸发，它这个你看，你表面都是皱纹，都干了。哦。嗯，拿个工具。 来，第一步做手指架， 那这个支架嘛，你看。好，你看。好嘞。怎么样？看着是简单了，就是要天分与灵性。做陶瓷是要有耐力，也要恒心，也要付出心血的，所以我们才有一句成语，说是没有金刚钻不敢揽瓷器活嘛。
In the beginning, porcelain was made with primitive tools, like this water wheel, used to crush rocks, that were then mixed with water in ponds like this to form clay. They would then be baked in wood-fired kilns like this. Close to 250 of these kilns have been discovered in Dehua County. And from here, China was spread all over the world via the maritime Silk Road through Quanzhou. I've arranged to meet a Quanzhou native, Xue Lun. She studied Quanzhou's history to learn about her own roots, and posts videos about what she learned on social media, attracting nearly 10,000 views for clips. She tells me what life was like in Quanzhou during the city's golden age more than 600 years ago.
在宋元时期啊，泉州特别的富庶，所以呢，当时的外国人他们是不能随便进城的，外国人都住在这一片，就是城墙之外的，这是城外。那在这边过去呢是城里哈。当时的泉州就跟现在上海的外滩一样，有一半以上是外国人，而且呢，其中呢阿拉伯人是最多的。 宋元时期呢，泉州特别的开放包容，所以各国的商人可以在这边按照他们的生活习俗和宗教信仰，在这边自由的生活。
In recent years, some ethnic Chinese have reversed the movement of generations ago to return to Quanzhou.
Saya bisa ngomong Indonesia, mama saya, papa saya dari Indonesia, saya di sini lahir.
Hong's parents left Indonesia in the 1960s after an anti-communist crackdown turned violent. Hundreds of ethnic Chinese like them fled to China. Hong was born here in Quanzhou.
我们虽然这边出生了，但是我们长辈也是有时候国庆节啊，什么举行什么活动都会跳印尼舞，会跳舞啊，唱歌啊，做印尼我们这个华侨的菜呀，就这样大家一起乐咯。
From thousand-year-old temples to the sounds of the southern Minnan dialect.
南音呢，它是我们泉州非常重要的一张文化名片。
我们都是千年瓷都，所以我们拆呢就是陶瓷嘛。
Walking around Quanzhou can sometimes feel like stepping on pieces of treasure.
This is Liverpool, known for its music, the Beatles, and football. But step back in time, and this city was also pivotal in opening England up to the world.
Liverpool was one of the kind of great world ports, particularly at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. It's hard to imagine now, but the kind of warehouses and sort of dockside scenes that are still visible today would have been incredibly busy with, you know, thousands of workers, either dockers working on loading and unloading the ships, or with the kind of, you know, the merchants and the clerks who worked in the offices in the city.
Located on the northwestern coast of England, Liverpool offered an ideal stopping point on international trade routes for centuries. Carrying cargo including fabrics and slaves, ships came here in their droves as they sailed between Ireland and Europe, as well as North America. The wealth that flowed through Liverpool was, for a time, unrivalled. The merchants that operated here, some of the richest in England and the whole world.
In its day, it was probably the second greatest or the second biggest port in the world. You'd have had quite a cosmopolitan makeup in the city. You'd have seen people from around the world in a way that you wouldn't see in other British cities, which didn't have that kind of direct contact with kind of international communities.
Well, there's the Royal Coat of Arms and then Liverpool Coat of Arms.
That power and influence has become immortalised in the city's grand civic buildings. One of them, the neoclassical St George's Hall.
There's four major features: the barrel vaulted ceiling, biggest in the world at the time, the Willis organ, again the biggest at the time, and beneath our feet is the encaustic tiled Minton floor, again the best in the world. We were the only city outside of London to have its own Bank of England, and it meant that we were a statement. We were the second city of the empire, and we thought it.
Alan Smith heads up the preservation of Liverpool's collection of historic buildings, but he takes on this role at a tricky time. Earlier this year, Liverpool hit the headlines after UNESCO decided to strip the city of its World Heritage Site status. The accolade, held since 2004, had been awarded to Liverpool as the best example of a commercial port at a time when Britain had the greatest global influence as the world's leading maritime power. But in July, UNESCO said its historic waterfront had, over time, lost the attributes that set it apart. UNESCO had warned back in 2012 that the area was under threat, but it remains a decision that Alan says he can't understand.
Why would UNESCO take that iconic image away from their portfolio or catalogue of beautiful venues across the world?
Many think the answer could lie partly with one of the city's football clubs, Everton. Their ground, Goodison Park, is in urgent need of an upgrade, and plans are afoot for a major new development approved by the City Council. A couple of kilometres west of Liverpool city centre sits Bramley Moor Dock. That's the site where Everton Football Club want to base their new stadium, but it's a plan that's ruffled UNESCO's feathers. That's because Bramley Moor Dock sat within the UNESCO World Heritage Site footprint. But this is the reality of what the area looks like today. Liverpool's City Council says it is in urgent need of regeneration. Local government officials say that the development would bring with it a myriad of social and economic benefits, as well as investment to an area that has been in need of it for decades. And they hope that the impacts will be felt across the entire Liverpool city region. A stone's throw from Bramley Moor Dock is Albert Dock, also within the heritage site, as well as the wider waterfront, which is also about to undergo a transformation. UNESCO says it's detrimental to the site's authenticity and integrity. But Francis Baker, who is overseeing one of the regeneration projects, says the old must be married with the new at this juncture in Liverpool's history.
It's an underused space, and actually we need to start thinking about the history of the space and how we tell that story of the transatlantic slavery, and also just recognise it and remember it, but then also create new spaces for the communities to come. So at the moment we have this underused outdoor space, and we have the museum one side and another the other, and it's bringing all of that together.
While Liverpool has lost the UNESCO Heritage Badge, it is still a UNESCO City of Music, one of fewer than 50 in the world. The Liverpool Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, fondly known as the Phil, was founded in the city in 1840 and is one of the oldest orchestras in Europe. Its chief executive, who also chairs the Liverpool City Region Music Board, says having that recognition is valuable.
Fundamentally, I think it's about us saying Liverpool is both historically but also currently a hugely important music city. The music industry in the city right now is a very important part of its economy, and those of us in it believe that there's scope for that to grow still further. And so that UNESCO status, I think, helps really to consolidate and support that message.
Back at St George's Hall, Alan Smith is moving forward with new projects that he says will help keep those historical buildings alive.
We're in a trial period at the moment, but it's been so well received, it's actually sold out.
While the loss of the UNESCO Heritage Site status is disappointing, he says Liverpool can live without it. There are many Liverpudlians and others who say that without UNESCO heritage status, Liverpool's economy can still thrive. These relics of the past will become Liverpool's economic and social centres of the future. It's a reminder of how, as much as we may want to preserve our roots, we may have to uproot them sometimes so society can be freed to go even further.
Across northern India, a 2,000-year-old story is being told. On countless stages, in thousands of villages, towns and cities, rapturing millions. The Ram Leela, or Ram's play, is the story of the beloved king of North India, Ram, who vanquishes his nemesis, Ravan. This story from the Hindu epic, the Ramayana, is enacted over 10 days during the annual Dashera festival, which celebrates the triumph of good over evil. This performance of the Ram Leela in the town of Noida, on the outskirts of India's capital New Delhi, has been going on every year for 36 years and counting. Their retelling of the Ram Leela goes back to when Ram is banished from his kingdom by his stepmother and forced into exile in a forest with his wife Sita for 14 years. And this time, Ujjwal Rana wears Ram's crown. This is the 22-year-old's big debut. He admits he's under great pressure to bring Ram to life.
टेंशन बहुत थी। मैं पहले दिन जिस दिन उतरा, मतलब यहाँ से हमारा बालकनी में वॉक करते हैं, हम फ्रेम देते हैं, मेरे पैर कांप रहे थे ऐसे। मैं राम जी के मुझे अंदर बस गया राम जी मेरे अंदर, मैं कर लूँगा वो रोल। तो अब नहीं रहा, पहले दिन ऑफ कोर्स हुआ था, थोड़ा बहुत होता है।
Everything about the Ram Leela is larger than life, and putting on the attire of gods and demons is no easy feat either. Ravan, for example, needs to be sitting in this chair for the next 2 hours before he's ready to look and act the part. He's played by 36-year-old Gajendra Chauhan, who sees him as more than the villain who kidnapped Ram's wife Sita.
हाँ, ये मुश्किल ऐसा रोल है कि वाकई में लोग रावण को एक ही रूप में देखना चाहते हैं कि वो गलत था। एक्चुअल में उसकी चीज़ें सही किसी ने देखी नहीं, क्योंकि अगर वो सीता को उठा के भी लेके गया तो उसने सीता को महलों में नहीं लेके गया, उन्हें सीता को छुआ तक नहीं, वो मर्यादा में था हर जगह।
Ravan's abduction of Sita sets up an eventual confrontation between him and Ram, and in the epic, Ravan takes Sita from the forest to his kingdom Lanka in the south, taking revenge for Ram rejecting his sister and insulting her. Like most Ram Leelas performed across the country, this one too is mostly an amateur production, using just a handful of professional actors. And it is the dedication of these actors that has kept the traditional staging of the epic alive for over 500 years. In 2008, UNESCO placed the Ram Leela on its intangible World Heritage List. It recognized how the performance brings the whole population together, with everyone participating spontaneously on stage and behind the scenes. This is the first time that this gathering is being held since the COVID-19 pandemic started. All the actors had to get tested, vaccinations were compulsory. Items on the UNESCO Heritage List get funding aid from the UN body, but that doesn't always trickle down, so this year budgets have been slashed by 30%.
देखिए पहले 60 होते थे, 10 कलाकार करीब हमने कम करे हैं, अब 50 कलाकार हैं। देखिए ये प्रसन्नता तो है कि चलो कुछ नहीं हो रहा था, हो तो रहा है। श्री राम
जानकी बैठे हैं मेरे सीने में श्री राम जानकी बैठे हैं देख लो मेरे दिल के नगीने में देख लो मेरे दिल के मदीने में.
For the audience, once on stage, these actors are often no longer themselves.
मुझे भी स्टार्टिंग में बहुत ऑकवर्ड लगता था, मतलब सब मेरे पैर पड़ते थे, वो सिर रखते थे, मुझे अजीब लगता था, पर फिर कैरेक्टर ही ऐसा है, करना पड़ता है, मतलब हम कैरेक्टर में हैं तो बोल भी नहीं सकते कुछ.
वो सीता माता बोलते हैं, पैर छूते हैं, बहुत उस टाइम बहुत प्राउड फील होता है, हम कितने महान कैरेक्टर प्ले कर रहे हैं, उनके पूरे रंग में ढलना होता है हमें.
Beyond worshipping the actors as the roles they portray, many feel coming to watch the Ram Leela is their duty as good Hindus.
घर में जो बच्चे भी हैं, उन भी एक ग्रंथ है उनके बारे में जानने के लिए कि रामायण में क्या होता है, उसके लिए
भगवान का चीज़ है इसलिए अच्छा लगता है, इसलिए हम देखने आते हैं इसको. धार्मिक चीज़ है
और धर्म से जुड़ेगा तो फिर हमें मतलब बहुत कुछ सीखने को भी मिलेगा और मैंने भी इसमें हमारा कर्तव्य भी तो है एक तरह से अपने धर्म को बचाने का.
That pride in the Ram Leela being a Hindu festival cannot be divorced from a resurgence of Hindu nationalism. And that is linked to the rise of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's ruling Hindu majority Bharatiya Janata Party. But there are those who want to take religion out of it.
Now, when you take it out of and make it just religious, you're excluding people from it. You're not including people in a story which is universal, you're making it very exclusive.
This moment in the Ram Leela pulls in the biggest crowd. After storming Ravan's kingdom of Lanka, Ram faces off with his rival. The battle ends in Ravan's death and Ram's victory. As a finale, Ravan's effigy is set on fire. The show is over for now. And 11-year-old Jatin Govind, who plays the elephant-headed god Ganesh, is already thinking of the years to come. He dreams of playing Ravan one day and has already started practicing. He's a part of a new generation that will keep the Ram Leela alive for many more years to come. It's a story that's endured the test of time.
अभी बुरा वक्त चल रहा है तो अच्छा वक्त भी आएगा.
रामलीला हमारे हिंदुत्व को रिप्रेजेंट करता है.
Anchoring generations to their past and continuing to be a beacon of light and hope for the future.